It would be a stressful situation during a court sentencing, especially if the verdict is taken on you. This would affect different people in different ways. In this video, we will see such bizarre reactions of people in court. Judge Kiana Lillard. Judge Kiana Lillard is in the middle of sentencing Amanda Cosell for a DUI, which resulted in the death of a young man. Things seems to be going completely smoothly until a man and a woman can't stop laughing at the back of the courtroom gallery. The judge reminds everyone that this is a court of law and is not a joke. But it didn't stop there. On her way out, the woman adds some back chat to the mix, landing herself 93 days in jail. For speaking out of turn in the courtroom, she was charged for criminal contempt. Not only was Amanda sentenced to 3 to 15 years in jail, her friend was sentenced for 93 days, on a day when she wasn't even on the one on trial. Sadly, she only spent a night in jail. But it must have taught her a lesson. The courtroom is no place to joke around. Michael Maron. This man led a life that most people could only imagine. He had made $1 million, traveled the globe, traded in complex stocks, and generally lived a life of luxury. That is, until he went into debt by purchasing a mansion he couldn't afford. He planned to burn the house down to get away from his problems, but his home insurance company became suspicious and looked into it. It turns out that he planned the entire thing and used a scuba tank and mask to flee the fire. He realized that if found guilty of the incident and arson, he may face a long prison term. As the verdict was being read, he placed his hands over his mouth looking distraught, but secretly, he slipped a pill in his mouth. Soon, chaos ensued. Turns out he poisoned himself with cyanide as soon as the guilty verdict was read. Soon after, he went into convulsions and died on the courtroom floor, leaving his wife and 4 kids behind. Isabel Martinez. She isn't your typical upright citizen, to put it mildly. For fatally stabbing her husband and 4 children, she is accused of 6 charges of aggravated assault and 5 counts of murder. She has only 1 child that survives. It is clear from the woman on her left's response to her. She says she doesn't have a job when the judge asks if she does. And when he suggests that she hire an attorney, she flatly declines. The strangest thing is that this woman looks happy about the murders, and much happier now that she's serving a life sentence. She gets on the ground bowing out of nowhere, confusing the entire court. It seems like she loves having the attention of the cameras on her, smiling proudly and touching her outfit as if she's famous. She also gives her sentence a big 2 thumbs up. So far, she's escaped the death penalty and is awaiting trial for life in prison. The court is still waiting for the dean if she's mentally stable enough to have a trial. Do you think she's mentally stable? Michael Fisher. One of the most crucial components of appearing in court is maintaining composure during the sentence. Michael Fisher appears in this instance patiently, awaiting the announcement of his sentence. He has been found guilty of first-degree murder in the deaths of his wife and son. The judge announces he was given a life sentence without the possibility of release. In that moment, he decides to take matters into his own hands. He punches his deputy Scott Ebe and tries to remove an officer's handgun in hopes of escaping. While snatching an officer's gun might have looked like a good decision at the time, he quickly realized that he should have remained seated like the others. He is then tasered by police in the next instant. Michael's last words to the judge were, "I'm going to come back and get every last one that did something to me." Well, we don't think he will be out anytime soon. Penelope Soto. Penelope Soto is very charming, even when she's in court, on a charge of drug possession. She goes on about how much jewelry she owns and laughs whenever the judge is talking. The judge reminds her that the court is not a club, and things take a turn for the worse for her when she mocks him by imitating one of the judge's accents, saying adios when she leaves. For this, the judge changes her charge from $5,000 to $10,000. She is livid, walking away, flipping the word and telling the judge to go to hell. At this point, the judge has had enough. He brings her back, finds her in direct criminal contempt, and orders her to spend 30 days in the county jail for that outburst. The girl was obviously never taught to respect authority. Sadly, in a later hearing, the judge dropped a $10,000 fine along with the 30 days of jail and sent her to the drug court instead because she apologized. Shondell Jackson. We can see a teen convict named Shondell Jackson. He is in the Milwaukee County Courthouse at his sentencing for being convicted of murdering a university student. Officials said that Jackson fled to Mississippi the day after Potter's murder. Jackson's uncle reportedly tipped off the police on his whereabouts, where he was arrested. In the video, we can see that while he was on trial, Jackson made gestures towards the victim's family, and when he was escorted out of the courtroom, you can see him smiling at the family just before the sentencing. Jackson's mother told the court she first heard about the killing on TV. "When I saw it on the news, I even cried. I'm like, oh my god, I can't imagine what that mother is going through. I never had a clue that my child had to do anything with it. My son is not a monster." Jackson now apologizes for what he has done. When the judge announced life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, Jackson had an outburst. As the deputies restrained Jackson, you can hear one of the Jackson family members screaming at the victim's family. While Jackson is serving life in prison without parole, his friend pleaded guilty to acting as the lookout and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Mr. Jones. In a courtroom, everyone reacts differently, but in Mr. Jones' case, it led to one of the strangest reactions in court ever. Normally, it leads to standing in silence, crying and looking at your loved ones. He was on trial for both the murder of a police officer and possession of a weapon used in a violent crime. He can act any way makes him feel better, yet it is unclear if the biting and growling is an intimidation tactic. In the state where the death sentence is legal, everybody has a different method of coping with stress. While this was his preliminary hearing, Mr. Jones was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Mr. Wilkins. In 2008, Mr. Wilkins was in court for a felonious assault charge. He decided he wanted to represent himself in court even when encouraged by the judge to get a lawyer. A few years earlier, he represented himself and was miraculously acquitted. Despite having only an 8th grade education, presumably he thought the same thing would happen, but it didn't. He was in the middle of questioning a police officer as part of his defense and knew he couldn't get away with it this time. So he tried to act his way out of it. He collapsed to the floor faking a heart attack, but this Academy Award-winning performance definitely didn't bode well with the judge. She had multiple police officers and medics check out Mr. Wilkins, and they all concluded he was completely faking it. After waking him up, she had some choice of words for Mr. Wilkins. Judge Hoffman ended his antics with a 42-year sentence. Manson Bryant. It can be a good trial when the person on the stand is named Manson. Manson Bryant was a career criminal who was found guilty of robbery, kidnapping, and an armed robbery in 2018. He testified on his behalf at his sentence and discussed how he had made numerous poor judgments, how drugs had been involved, and how he was working to change. He thanked the court for its judgment and lauded the entire legal system. As the judge handed out the 22-year sentence, his attitude shifted. Bryant went into a rage and began tossing insults at the judge and the court. He yelled and cursed for a long period, including several F-words. For his troubles, the judge extended his sentence by 6 years. With that, we have come to the end of this video. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. For more videos, click on the links you see on the screen. We will come back again with more interesting stories. Until then, goodbye.